to cover that area in terms of spiritual cover. So I found that very unfortunate. It never took long before Bishop Alec Banda was branded the Lucifer. Now, the bishop is speaking for people. For the people that he is mandated by God to speak for. Just because of that, you brand him a Lucifer. I think on social media, I saw somebody saying that when Bishop Imakando spoke against what he thought or what he was inspired to think was bad governance of the PF, the bishop was not branded a Lucifer by anyone. But Father Alec Banda was branded a Lucifer. A father in Indola was summoned by police for nothing but just preaching to the people. Now, all these I'm talking about are Catholic priests. It is now the bishop in Eastern Province who was told off by a government minister, a UPNG minister, the spokesperson of the ruling party, in fact of government, spokesperson for government and the ruling party, threatening that we will now start targeting you as individuals. We will separate you from the flock. The same way, Bishop Alec Banda was separated from the flock and branded the Lucifer. What is happening to the Roman Catholic Church, what has been happening to them is extremely unfortunate and it should come to an end. I have to be clear, I'm not Catholic, but I'm hurt at a personal level because I'm a Christian. And I am hurt because when I go back in memory lane, where I was growing up in the village, the Catholic is the only government we knew. The Catholic at Kapatu Mission, they offer education. At Kapatu Mission, there has been a clinic. And my village is just 11 kilometers away from Kapatu Mission. The conditions which could not be managed at Kapatu Mission would be taken to Chiluvula. That is Catholic. So I am very, very hurt that this church, which offers so much in terms of social services to the nation, is being treated like this by a government whose people are being taken care of by the same Catholic. My daughter finished with So I am very, very hurt. I think if government wants the Catholic Church to be clearing their sermons, they should just say so. Now, you are not the one who called them. These were called by God. So they clear their sermons, they clear their homilies with the inspiration of God. And telling you about how the people are feeling, about the sufferings of the people, does not constitute attacking government. You are there to save people. Why are you running away from hearing the truth? All you want as government is to be listening to yourselves. And the things that you say are inconsistent. Look at what Beyani has been saying. Beyani has been saying something that the Zamstat are not saying in the same government. So why do you want even the Catholics to listen to you? When inside yourselves you are unable to speak to issues in a consistent manner. I think UPNG, to be very honest with you, now when it comes to the Catholic Church, you need to go in reverse. You need to reverse the gear. Stop the hatred against the church, which is just there to lead people to God and also to offer social services. In some of the areas where you are even incapable of offering those social services. It's very sad to observe that for some of them you are even threatening, to be handling them personally. It's very, very unfortunate. The second issue I want to discuss is the issue about what the World Bank is saying about our country. We are now at number 6 as the most impoverished country in the nation. The World Bank has said so, and the UPND government is quiet. But when a bishop said people are hungry, a government minister goes and responds and says it is a bishop who is hungry. Now, are you going to tell me that it is the World Bank which is impoverished? Because I have never seen an impoverished nation which has happy people. If a nation is impoverished, it means people are poor. And when people are poor, how can they not be hungry? But because it is a Catholic bishop who says people are hungry, you go for him and you are saying it is a bishop who is hungry. It is actually, the people are okay. What you are doing is very, very sad, UPND government. I expected you to balance. When World Bank says you are impoverished, you tell them that it is you, World Bank, who is impoverished. Because that's your response to a bishop who lives with people. This World Bank does not even live with people. This World Bank just does research around here. But the bishop is covering the people who he sees every day. In fact, some of these hungry people are getting food from the bishop. That's why the bishop knows that. They are being cared for by the bishop. But for you, because he's a Catholic bishop, or because he's somebody you don't like, or you don't want him to be talking for his people according to the call that he got from God, you are calling him, if you call him names, you are now telling him he is the one who is angry. Oh, it's very, very unfortunate. I think UPND government, in most of these things will hate you. They will haunt you. Stop labeling Catholics in this manner. I will be more comforted, or a bit comforted, if I hear government calling on World Bank and telling them you are the ones who are impoverished. You are quiet. You are quiet. I will end Dr. Veyani's comments on the census. Now, Dr. Veyani has continued has maintained that the census results are illegal and that they are now void. I think Dr. Veyani is really annoying. He's so annoying that he's damaging a country which is already damaged. He's damaging the reputation of Zambia when we know we are number 6 in terms of being impoverished in the entire world. But now he's damaging even the credibility of public institutions. Does Dr. Veyani know that Zamstat is a government institution and they work in the name of the president? Does he know that that institution falls under a minister who is appointed by the president? Does he know that Zamstat's work is indeed work for the president? Now, if Zamstat is going to give the results of its work to the people, and then an appointee of the president gets up and says, this work is fake, this work is illegal, this work is now void, who is Dr. Veyani? I think you have really been tolerated by the president. And you are lucky to serve under this president who does not see how you are damaging him by disputing his own work. That is public work. That is work which should be credited to the president. And the president he has just been looking at you. You are very lucky, Dr. Veyani. For me, I would like the Zambian people to dismiss you with, or dismiss your views with the content they deserve. Because what is even your profession? Somebody was telling me that you studied history. Now, those are statistics you are talking about. Those are statistics. By the way, if you are disputing the census report, where are your accurate figures? Where are they? Why are you not bringing alternative figures and say these are the figures which are accurate? I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed, I think, for the fact that after you have been, I think, advised by many people, even through public, you continue maintaining your position of disputing government work. I think the president should fire you. That's what I think. But elsewhere, I was called upon to join people who were calling for your firing. I thought you were really infireable, because if I were the president, you could have gone that same day. That you can't cause such a scandal. You cause such a sin when government data is being presented to the public, and you rise up and say this data is fake. You can't. You can only do so in this government. And this is why I was constrained to join those people who are calling for your firing. Because that same day, you could have gone, if it were me. You can't do that. Discrediting the very authority that put you where you are. It's very unfortunate. I think the Zambian people should just dismiss Dr. Bayani with his views, with the contempt they deserve. Because such a person, such views should not be projected in a country which is already battered by a lot of difficulties. We have too much difficulties to be handling credibility issues emanating from government players fighting each other. If there's somebody you don't like at Zamstad, just say, you go and lobby so that they are fired, instead of discrediting the entire Zamstad. The Minister of Finance comes to the floor of the House to assure the nation that these statistics are okay. You go and counter that. It's a shame. Instead of government to be dealing with these problems which are inside of the government, they also can't do that. All they are saying is, we are going to follow bishops personally. Those who are preaching, just short of saying, bring the sermons to us so that we clear them, so that you can be parroting our views. Continue listening to yourselves. You'll be shocked. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I want to start first by thanking the senior member of Central Committee for the Patriotic Front and the senior legislator, my colleague, the Honorable Member for Lunte Constituency, Honorable Kafwaya, for the delivery that is just made. We continue to address the press as Patriotic Front members of Parliament in the House under the auspices or under the umbrella of the Tonse Alliance. As a way of showing that even under the most difficulty of circumstances, we continue to provide what we consider credible checks and balances to the party that is in government, even when they are making it completely difficult for us to do that. We are equal to the task, and also just to let the public know, or the viewers know, that today we're just the two of us because of the national events that are taking place. Our colleagues have gone ahead of us to go and join the women folk in celebrating the important day that has been spared by the calendar for women activities. We thought that we should not have, a termination of this service to the public. We were not able to speak to the public last week because there was an official calendar date where the president came to address the House. And this week we've been debating the president's speech, and this is why you see only the two of us. But we thought that some of the information that we want to make available to the public is very important. It couldn't wait for next week. I adopt what my senior colleague has said as my own positions on all the matters that he has canvassed and addressed the nation on. And I just want to add very briefly to what he has said. One of the most important statements that I would like to repeat is what I said last week, the week before last, that the police must carry out their functions with objectivity, with professionalism, and with independence. I made a specific call last time we spoke to the press that an individual called Mr. Max Muwe had committed some very serious offenses and had called on the IG, Inspector General of the Police, Mr. Grafem Msamba, to ensure that those matters that were raised by Mr. Muwe, were investigated, and if they were found to be culpable, they must actually be made a subject of police investigation and arrests. Lo and behold, the nation has been treated to a completely different expectation. Our colleague, Mr. Samoe, has now been appointed into some even more senior position, which means that whatever we said before, has fallen on deaf ears, because instead of doing what is right by having those very serious allegations he raised against the sixth Republican president investigated, he has been rewarded by an appointment of a very lofty position within the structures of the UPND. We are not surprised with that turn of events. We know that sometimes when we speak truth to authority, the authority scoffs at us by making a position that is completely different from what people have as expectations. Now, this has ramifications, and this is what I would like to start my address today with, when the police do not carry out their functions with due diligence, when the police do not carry out their functions with professionalism, and independence, you have other multiplier problems that arise from what the failure or the inertia that has been exhibited by the police. It is now becoming very clear that serious offenses are taking place in the country because the police are not heeding to the advice that we're giving them as members of the opposition. And also because they are busy chasing, those who were in the Patriotic Front government and their collaborators for what they perceive were the offenses that were committed. They are making political, advances towards leaders as a way of trying to paralyze the opposition, especially the Patriotic Front itself. And unfortunately, with those developments, what we are now seeing is a rising spate of serious offenses taking place or serious crimes taking place within the country. I mean, you heard of what was happening at Curfew Roundabout, where motorists were having their valuables stolen by young men, who patronized that area. And it took the noise that was made by people and the opposition for the police to be reactionary. And they went on to Curfew Roundabout and mopped up a few of those young men. And I'm very sure that the others have remained. They continue to commit the same atrocities against innocent motorists. Okay, I mean, last week, by how they operate to prevent commission of crimes, you can only say we are peaceful, we're living peacefully, if the spate of crime reduces, not where there's been arrest. So we don't judge the police's effectiveness by the number of people that they arrested. Today, there's now a story that has broken that the police officers themselves have committed an aggravated robbery where they've actually stolen $200,000 from a Zimbabwean national who's in this country. Now, all these things are happening, quite frankly, because the police are not paying attention to where the criminality is actually taking place. They are paying attention much more to which politicians are making noise, and they must be arrested and kept out of circulation so that, the political scene can begin to look like everything is okay, there's a rule of law. I'll deal with that matter in detail, I think, as I continue to address the nation. But I just wanted to make a point regarding, the social media frenzy that has now followed what happened in that armed robbery that took place in front of a camera in a truck. Unfortunately, it has now taken a tribal tirade, which is extremely unfortunate. You've seen what social media has started saying. People have now started saying, oh no, this is very surprising. That Tongas are the ones who are committing aggravated robberies. This is supposed to be a preserve of the Bembas. It might sound like a joke, but quite frankly, in the eyes of a leader, this should not be a joke. This is a dimension of our failure to deal with ethnicity and ethnic relationships. This tells you what the public is now consuming in terms of how our people are going to start relating with each other. You can imagine people going to social media and beginning to brand the Tongas, suggesting that they are not capable of stealing, that they don't have the skill to steal, that this skill is a preserve of a particular tribe, the Bembas on the other side. Now, neither a Tonga nor a Bemba has a privilege of being a better thief than the other. A thief is just a thief because there's a problem in society. So, on the one hand, the failure by the police to properly police societies is what is resulting in these crimes taking place. But on the other hand, in the eyes of us who have the privilege to be leaders in this nation, we need to pay particular attention to how the public has started relating with each other in terms of what is going on and who should do what. It is not a small thing for people to go on the media and begin to suggest that this particular tribe can't steal, this one can steal. Believe it or not, once you let the cat out of the bag, it is something that you would never correct. And this is why we've been calling on the president and other leaders to pay particular attention to the provisions of the Constitution that mandates the president and the government to balance the ethnic relationships in the nation. People need to begin to know that they can associate across tribes. But when you create a scenario where people begin to perceive others as them and us, what you hear now on social media, people talking on social media about those little boys, the unfortunate incident of the theft, is basically a writ large of how society begins to see itself. You begin to see Tongas and Bembas in thefts. You begin to see Nyanjas and losses in whatever is going on in the country. And now, for me, it reminds me of why our forefathers ensured that we were supposed to operate as one Zambia, one nation, and ensure that we had tribal balancing in everything that we're doing. So for me, this is a challenge to the government. Yes, let's deal with criminality, but also let's deal with how people are beginning to perceive each other. When people begin to point at each other fingers and suggesting, oh, he's Tonga, oh, he's Bemba, oh, he's whatever, then we have a problem that even politicians will never resolve going forward. We need to nip this when it's bad now that is beginning to show its ugly face. The other issue I wanted to deal with is the issue of a president's speech. There are some issues that I know I intend to raise, and I'm queuing up to debate in the House. Today I was supposed to have debated. I was curtailed because it was suggested that we're supposed to leave the chamber earlier than before. But knowing that maybe I may not have the opportunity to debate in the House, I felt maybe I should just do a snippet of what my thinking is around what I thought were controversial issues that the president raised. This report is very important on the calendar of Parliament. The president's speech to come and address us on the national values and principles is very, very important because Article 8 up to 7, 8, and 9 of the Constitution mandates the president to come and deal with the progress the government has made in the application of our principles and values. But what I've seen is consistently, it appears that those who handle the office of a president in preparing this document do not understand what the responsibility is. Mainly, they ask the president to come and deal with futuristic positions. Like if you heard what the president was saying, and I'll deal with it in a bit detail, he was talking about the future of constitutional making in the country. It's calling everybody to get a buy-in into the constitution making because this constitution has got problems. It is a repeat of what happened last year. But what caught my eye is what they did with the issue of free education. The president needed to come and explain to the nation, first, the progress we've made in achieving the agenda of free education in the nation, and also the challenges we could have faced, if any, in trying to ensure that that program is effectively implemented by the government. The president was made to bring an old lady who has taken herself back to school in Solwezi, and her name is called Dorothy Kamanisha. In the report of the president, there's this, and I quote, he says of this matter, the policy, meaning free education, has motivated some of our citizens, including the aged ones. For example, let's welcome the 42-year-old female pupil, Dorothy Kamanisha from Solwezi, who has gone back to school in grade 9. She has come with her head teacher, Crispin Mumena, of Rodwell Mwepude Secondary School. Shall we give them a round of applause? If you heard there was a cacophony of concern in the House, because some members of Parliament who understand decorum in the House would not have expected the President to ask the House to give them a round of applause. We do not clap in Parliament. Parliamentary decorum and procedure, we have a way in which we applaud what is a positive dimension of a discussion that is on the floor of the House. But most importantly, this lady was used an example to try and cast this story that free education has benefited people. I think the ones who handle the presidency should have done a better job about this lady. Because to start with, this lady is old. An old person takes too long to assimilate to issues, including learning. They should have kept her in class. But they brought her to Lusaka, and I'm sure she lost about 8 days of class, because to come from Solwezi, come here, wait, be presented in Parliament, people applaud, then you go back to Solwezi. It takes all that time for an old lady who's 42 years, who is supposed to be in secondary school. She's supposed to have utilized that time in class. But even more brazenly, you see, what we then discovered later was that this woman is not just a beneficiary of free education. There was an interview that took place in the foyer of Parliament after the President had addressed the nation and left. And the journalist from ZNBC was trying hard to try and get her to speak about the benefits of free education. But she was honest. You know, she said, well, I took myself back to school in 2019, or I think 2020. Now, the whole nation started getting confused because this is a woman who has been brought to parliament to come and say she benefited from free education. And there she is saying herself, well, I went back to school in 2019 because I wanted to go and learn how to write and how to read. So the president was made to come and speak of a falsity on the floor of the House. Because this woman is not a beneficiary of free education. She took herself to school in 2019. So what did you achieve? It's better for those who are handling the president's speech to make sure that they keep the president within the confines of the truth so that they can project a correct viewpoint. Yes, so many of our children have gone back to school because of the policy of free education. Surely they should have identified somebody who genuinely benefited from that. Okay, so this is one miss that they had. Secondly, the president has repeatedly been talking about the rule of law. And the country is better now compared to what it was under the previous regimes, according to him. I always shudder when I hear the president say like that. Sometimes I forgive him when he just speaks at a podium somewhere. But when he introduces that into the president's speech to be brought to Parliament under Article 8 of the Constitution, it worries me because here he is mirroring the government, into the population by explaining genuinely and honestly what was going on. This time he zeroed into a controversial issue of elections and certified the elections that took place in Pambashe, in Kawambwa Central, and in Petauke as free and fair. In fact, in his closing remark, he was saying, look, people didn't even know there were elections because these elections were so free and fair. I started asking myself a question. Is the president properly detailed about what goes on when we have these by-elections? I possibly remembered that when we were having a by-election in Kawambwa Central, he may not have even been in the country. But the Kawambwa by-election was so violent that it negated the possibility of a free and fair election, if you have to describe one as such. You see, and there are examples that you can use. Me and Honorable Brian Mundubile, we suffered at the hands of the UPND cadres who gave us a chase within the town of Kawambwa. We protected ourselves by driving the vehicle into a camp for the Patriotic Front. And when they discovered that we had gone into the camp, they withdrew. Okay? The following day, Sean Temba was beaten within the premises of the police station, and the police were watching that fighting. He was assaulted by non-cadres who came from Lusaka and were in Kawambwa for a by-election. Sean Tembo went to the hospital, was given a medical form. He presented it to the police. Up to now, no arrests have taken place. In the Kawambwa Central by-election, Honorable Fuve and Honorable Kampampi, the MPs for Chirubi and Mwansawombo respectively, were subjects of insults and threats. For Fuve, there was even a threat of death on him. Somebody, the mayor from Mwensa, called him on the phone, and Fuve recorded that phone call and told him he was going to be killed unless he left that place, because according to him, he had been sent by Edgar Chagwalungu to come and destabilize that election in Kawambwa. I took Honorable Fuve personally to the police station, and we went and reported that matter and even left the recording. And because, frankly, we thought Fuve was under a serious threat, we withdrew him from the campaign. We told him, go back to Lusaka. It's not worth it, risking your life, because these threats are sounding very, very serious. Up to now, nobody has been arrested. There's a young lady called Sirumesi, who was with us in the campaign, in Kawambwa. She was assaulted. We were called. We went and picked her up. She was beaten by people that she knew from Lusaka. Her phone was grabbed from her because this young lady is a blogger. Her name is Namakao. She's a blogger. We took her to Kawambwa police station, reported the matter. We were told to go and get the medical form. We went and collected the medical form from Kawambwa General Hospital, brought it to the police. Up to now, no arrest has been made. When she came to Lusaka on Facebook, she identified the person who actually attacked her and made a statement that this person is the one who attacked me, and I think he's the one who must have taken the phone away from me. The police did not move in to arrest that person. Instead, Brenda, this young Namakao Sirumesi lady was called to Kabata police station to go and explain why she's thinking the particular individual she had named, Mr. Matomola, is one who actually assaulted her. In the midst of all that, Matomola started sending her threats on the phone, and she had those phones. She took them to Kabata police. Up to now, nobody has been arrested for the assault on that young lady. Nobody has been arrested for the theft of a phone that she lost in the Kawambwa by-election. We went without the police station. This Mr. Matomala, who had filed a complaint against her at the police station, didn't even come to the police station because we would have demanded as the lawyers for this young lady that he must be arrested because she has identified him. You see, he may not have been the one who committed the offense, but the fact that she identified him as one of the possible assailants, he should have come to explain himself to the police that he's not the one who committed the offense. Rather, he started issuing threats against her. And that case is a cold case, is a cold file up to now. Peter Chanda, the president of NCP, was assaulted in Kawambwa. I am the one who took him to the police. The same story, medical report, everything was done. Up to now, no arrest has been taken. In the same Kawambwa by-election, Mrs. Mumbipiri, in a small confrontation between herself and the MP for Munali, she was charged with aggravated robbery and was detained in Kawambwa. It took the DPP to tell them that this woman did not commit any offense for them to drop the charges. At that time, she had spent 2 weeks in custody. In the Pambashe by-election, Honorable Chiwombwe's driver was beaten using blocks. He was assaulted by non-people. Mr. Chiwombwe filed a report at the police. Up to now, no arrests have taken place. Lo and behold, when we came back here, Mr. Chiwombwe was summoned. And I'm the one who escorted him back to Kawambwa, where he was arrested and detained and kept in custody. For what offense? An assault on a police officer. Because there was an altercation between the driver and the police officer, and the Chiwombwe was in the motor vehicle. And he was arrested. So he stands charged with an offense of assaulting a police officer, even when everybody knows he didn't commit that offense. As if that is not enough, Honorable Jean Chisenga, arising out of the Kawambwa by-election, when they had a confrontation during the filing of nominations between herself and the ECZ officials, together with the lawyer that we had appointed to go and help us, because we knew there were going to be problems. So we sent a lawyer to go and assist in the filing of the nominations. That altercation that they had, which is usual in any elections, and the ECZ has got a process of dealing with those problems by taking them to the conflict resolution mechanism within the district. That did not happen. They came back to Lusaka, they were arrested. We had them deposited in custody. It took me applying for bail from a magistrate for them to be released. Now, that is the one side of this is why you want to argue that if somebody has to tell us anything about the rule of law being applied uniformly, we must demonstrate that there's going to be uniform application of the rule of law. We've taken up these matters with the senior command in Wapula province, senior command in Kawambwa, and I'm sure the IG has been detailed about this, but nothing has happened. So what you see is a scenario where if you belong to the opposition, they will arrest you even when they just think you've committed an offense. But if you belong to the political party in power, even when you commit an offense, they're not going to arrest you. You even have the audacity to begin to accuse your victim of accusing you of committing an offense, and no arrest takes place. You move from Kawambwa, you go to Petauke. The particular by-election was very violent, extremely violent. It took the people of Petauke to defend themselves and defend their votes. That's how the opposition won that election. But it is documented that Honorable Yotam Chacho's voter vehicle was stoned, it was broken, the windows shattered, the evidence was shown everywhere. And the people who are committing those offenses are non-UPND cadres. No arrest has taken place. Honorable Brenda Nyirenda, our Deputy Secretary General, was in Petauke. Fortunately, at that instance, the driver of our vehicle was alone, she wasn't in there. But that vehicle was shot at twice. The bullet holes were shown to the media in the public by Brenda Nyirenda, saying I would have been killed if I was in this motor vehicle. The people that fired those shots are known, and nothing has happened. And the president is told to prepare a speech, or those who prepare the speech for the president come to Parliament and come and tell Parliament that the elections in Pambashe and in Kawambwa and Petauke were free and fair. We need to get to a stage where we need to deal with these issues factually and truthfully so that we can portray what is called a true and fair view of what is going on in the political scene. The president should not be misinformed when he's coming to handle the issue of the State of the Nation address. The third issue also is the Constitution. You've heard what has happened to the Constitution. Twice the president has come to the House. The first time he came last year and said, we need to deal with the issue of the Constitution because there are lacunas. Whereby a presidential candidate or a person who is in the office of president can remain in office for 7 to 10 years without an election. Of course, people responded to that. There was a backlash, and a couple of months down the line, the president has come back to Parliament, still raises the issue of the Constitution, except this time justified differently. and come and say, okay, we're now going to deal with the Constitution because we have to return members of Parliament back to chamber at council, and also, that we have to do delimitation. And some people have taken that baton from the president. Firstly, this issue of constitutional amendments is futuristic. It is not the subject of a speech such as the one that the president brought to Parliament. But also because the handlers are misinforming the president, they let him, instead of speaking to us about what they have done or what they have achieved, he's talking to us about what they are going to do with the Constitution. And we have taken a position as a patriotic front on the Constitution. You can't bring the whole country into discussing the Constitution simply because you want to amend the Constitution to provide for MPs to return to Parliament, to council, or to do delimitation. As important as these programs are, a constitution-making process is supposed to be stakeholder-driven. And we have demanded of the UPND, please try and follow the procedures that have been followed by governments that have led this country previously, before you came into power. There are programs that you need to put in place that protect the process of constitutional making. When the UPND came into power, there was no discernible program that they would want to put in place to amend the Constitution. We started hearing about the process of amending the Constitution probably last year or towards the end of 2023, when they were talking about, we need to have non-controversial clauses and low-hanging fruits to be amended. And I've argued, and I should repeat here, and any lawyer we can challenge any lawyer to tell you, you can never find a low-hanging fruit in a Constitution. It's not possible. You can never find an uncontroversial clause in the Constitution. It's not possible. Everything in the Constitution is controversial. People have gone to court to just go and interpret what the meaning of thou in a Constitution is. That's how controversial a Constitution is. People have gone to court to go and just describe, when you say we the people of Zambia, what exactly do you mean by we the people of Zambia? So everything you put in a constitution is supposed to be controversial. Rather not controversial, but you can't have a low-hanging fruit in a constitution. You can't have a non-controversial clause in the Constitution. This is why all the constitutional review programs that have taken place in Zambia have been stakeholder-driven, not politician-driven. We now have a scenario where the president would like to drive a constitution-making process and ask everybody to join in. I have argued before that a politician is the most dangerous participant in the constitution-making process, because usually politicians look at themselves as opposed to the nation. And I've argued that a making of a constitution is not a political process. It's a national agenda. That's why we appoint Constitutional Review Commission, or the very least, a task force of expatriates who lead the process of now going through these amendments that we were supposed to undertake. But the way in which the president and by extension the UPND government are proceeding about the constitution-making process in the country, it will not be stakeholder-driven. It will not even earn its legitimacy. But most importantly, by the time the president was coming to the House, he had voiced so much concern about the need for us to amend the Constitution. Stakeholders have responded to him. They've actually said the window is past. And now it's even worse. You can't have a constitution within the next 1 year. It's not possible. I do not know what we want to achieve by making a constitutional amendment a priority in the next 1 year, when even today the president himself said we are on our own. Trump has pulled a plug. We have no assistance in terms of medical supplies from the states where we get the majority of our ARV and ART medication. These are the bigger problems that we have. We're just coming out of an era where we're dealing with COVID. We're coming out of an era where we're dealing with drought. Like Honorable Kafaya said, we're a country that is now ranked the 6th impoverished nation in the world. There are much more bigger problems that we can address than insisting that we're going to amend the Constitution within the window of a political life that the UPND has before they reach their tenure of 5 years. Okay? We have challenges. M23's problem is just next door here. You can't pretend that we can be doing things here oblivious of what is going on in DRC. Our priorities must be set right so that we can know exactly what is important for us. And in any case, I have also argued that the kind of program that the UPND is trying to introduce in amending the Constitution, it falls far less the threshold that was set up by Bill 10, which they themselves shot down. Now, you have a very credible process a very progressive process like amending the Constitution via Bill 10, and you come to Parliament and shoot it, or rather you don't come to Parliament, you stay out from Parliament so that it falls on the floor. Then you want to come back to the Zambian people and say, we have got a program to amend the Constitution with a very slim threshold, where you don't even want to consult stakeholders. Simply say, oh, no, there are lacunas, let's amend. Or we need to do the limitation, let's amend. Or we need to take MPs back to, you begin jumping or falling all over, to try and ensure that we have a constitutional amendment. This is not how you handle constitutional amendments. So for me, I would repeat the appeal that other stakeholders have made to this government, not out of disrespect, but out of being real and genuine, that we don't, first, there is no demand, sincerely speaking, for us to amend the Constitution currently. Believe it or not, the 2016 constitutional amendment that was undertaken by this country is the most progressive constitutional program to be undertaken since independence in this country. If I have to speak the language of the UPND, it is the first time we actually had a constitution that takes almost everything on board, and we amended that constitution. And when we tried to clean it up ourselves as Patriotic Front via Bill 10, the UPND itself is one that says there are no problems in the constitution. Why do you want to amend it? And they shut it down, and we lost it. Now they want to come and convince the nation, and in such a short period of time, I don't want to begin to think that they are being unfair or dishonest. But I just want to argue that the time we have, first, is too short, and secondly, the problems that the country faces are too huge for us to insist that we're going to amend the Constitution before the next election. I am thinking that the President must lend a hearing ear to those who have spoken about the need for us not to amend the Constitution between now and the next election. This Act number 2 of 2016 is the one that regulated the last election. And you can imagine under it, a political party which was in the opposition won and got into power. It tells you how good the Constitution itself is, which means the same Constitution can be utilized in the next election. We just need to ensure that we are going to have an election that is free and fair. What we are seeing, these dances around the constitutional amendment, these dances around the statistics, they're littering the area of elections. It will now become very difficult for Zambians to even think that we are headed for a free and fair and credible election in 2026. My colleague has argued very vehemently about the activities that Mr. Bayani, is it Dr. Bayani, was doing at Zamstats and others. These are issues that we must begin to pay attention to ensure that we have a credible election. Voters registration, these are issues we're supposed to be paying attention to. Are we doing it objectively? Is there anything that we're not doing correctly in voters? This is what we need to pay ourselves attention to, rather than wanting to come and deal with a document that can properly regulate the elections of 2026. I think that we need to become, much more serious as a nation. I think that we are faced with challenges that are huge, that need to be dealt with very, very urgently so that people can begin to put food on their plates. It's the only way we're going to have the reduction in criminality that we are seeing. I mean, you never expected those boys who are looking like 21 years, 17 years, 20 years, robbing a trucker. This is only happening, frankly, because the levels of hunger in the country have risen. And a government that cares for its people will pay attention to that, rather than wanting to suggest that we want to self-preserve by trying to do an amendment to the Constitution at a time when there's no complete necessity for that. Thank you very much for listening to me.